guest. Normally, I have my guest or my co-host, Derek Tate, with me, but today, Derek Tate is sick, and I have Daniel Dopp here with me. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Again, Fantasy Debate brought to you by the Fantasy Focused podcast, and we are sponsored by the Original Hooters. Daniel, I just want to, say, happy week 5. We're rolling right in. We're in the middle of the mix.
It's amazing that we are like a quarter of the way through the season already when I feel like it literally just started.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, there's never a dull moment, and we can roll right into some injury news that we just got today. To add on to everything else, more quarterbacks that don't feel good. Case Keenum is walking around in a walking boot.
Yeah. I heard that he just wanted to look cool because Cam looked cool when he walked around a walking boot. So it's just like the same kind of a thing,
Yeah. Was he also sporting a scarf and a weird hat?
I really hope not for Case Keenum's sake.
I know. I mean, I know that Matthew's very upset right now with his Redskins, but they were also, one of the coaches got interviewed today, and he said they don't have a quarterback plan for this weekend.
How can you be an NFL team and not have a quarterback plan for the weekend? The game's in like 4 days. It has to be Dwayne Haskins, right?
It's a bold move, Cotton. And
it's a very bold move.
I mean, just rolling into it with no quarterback. But maybe they'll figure it out. Terry McLaurin is back at practice. Maybe he's going to be under center.
Yeah, we're hoping. I hope he's not under center, unless maybe he's really good at running the Wildcat. I mean, kid is wicked fast. So
yeah, but he's there. And maybe Dwayne Haskins will be back in, even though everyone says he's not ready. They're kind of best friends. Maybe it'll be something.
Yeah, I don't think that Dwayne Haskins is ready. If you watch that game at all, I mean, it sucks because Dwayne Haskins can only be as ready as the Washington Redskins are ready, and that offensive line is just atrocious. And Haskins, obviously, as a rookie, there's a lot going on there. He did not look good. But you're hoping that if he does start this week, that him and Terry McLaurin can pick right up where they left off at the Ohio State University. Mm-hmm. And, just hopefully there are some fantasy points that come for Terry McLaurin this week.
At the very least, he is their only hope.
Literally their only hope. Chris Thompson is not too bad if you were in a serious problem at running back, just because they're probably going to be down so much that if you're in a full point PPR league, he's probably a guy that's going to catch a couple of passes. And, but he's not a guy that I feel comfortable starting. He's a low end flex play at best. And more so if you had a Saquon, if you have a really struggling running back or something, that you don't want to trust, he's a guy that you can throw in there and hopefully he'll at least get you something rather than that dreaded 0.
Yeah, definitely. And then another one bites the dust. John Ross is on IR.
That sucks.
Yeah. I mean, Tyler Boyd gets the boost, right?
I mean, he gets a boost because
can get a boost.
Right, as much as he can. Here's the problem, though. I feel like Tyler Boyd is not that guy that when someone when AJ Green has gone out, it's not like he's all of a sudden stepped in and become that wide receiver one that he may have been able to. And in part, that's just because we don't trust Andy Dalton. I mean, Tyler Boyd can only go as far as Andy Dalton, can throw. And I just, with John Ross being out, you have to like Tyler Boyd. If you are in a huge pinch at tight end, by some miracle, and I'm very happy about it, Tyler Eifert is still healthy so far, which is fingers crossed. I hope I did not jinx him, but he's a guy that you can maybe think of. But yeah, I mean, it's on Tate that you're looking at to see if maybe, especially in a DFS tournament or something like that, he's just a deep league flyer. But under almost no circumstance could you start Tate this week. He's just a guy to sort of keep an eye on and see how he projects through the rest of the season with Ross being out.
Definitely. And then one more, Davante Adams with turf toe, but is he just questionable with that turf toe? Is he just this feels funky? Or is he going to sit out?
I would assume, I think if you roster Davante Adams, you have to plan on him not playing this week. And if he does, then you're pleasantly surprised. You'll figure it out at 12:45 like the rest of us do. Mm-hmm. And hopefully you can roll with him. But you have to make plans that he is not going to be there, whether that's MVS, who I'm assuming is already off your waiver wire, potentially Geronimo Allison. And if not one of those two guys, then you're going to have to look elsewhere in your roster. But you cannot go in assuming that Davante Adams is going to start this week, because you will just be left with a massive hole if you do. By the way, so on the podcast today, we have a guy that works with us. His name is Jackson. He sits in the back of the Fantasy Focus podcast. And he brought up a really great point. Is turf toe the least serious sounding injury that actually hurts the most? When someone tears something, you're like, oh, obviously that hurts really bad. It's turf toe. It's oh man, your turf your toe hurts. Oh, poor guy. That's too
Yeah.
bad. But like turf toe actually hurts really badly if you have it.
Yeah, and I remember Stefania specifically going over it on a podcast of hers and ringing the bell. Is it ringing the bell, or is that
it's answering the bell?
It's answering the bell. See, Matthew says it so much. Is it that to ring the bell that it's now stuck in my head? I'm sorry, Stefania. Please, apologies. But yeah, it's actually a really painful injury. So hopefully he's okay. But if you've got some backups there, if you gotta have somebody. Adams. But some people that are back at practice for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, Tyreek Hill and Damian Williams. You know, that team is just struggling to find weapons, aren't they?
Oh, man, it is so tough for them.
It is bleak.
I feel like they are it's like the waiver wire right now. There's just nobody out there for them. I don't even know how they've been able to make it through the season so far.
I know. It's such a bleak outlook for them. You just hope that they land somewhere, they get some draft picks.
Oh, man. You know, they're like the Miami Dolphins of, well, no, they're not. But I mean, here's the thing. As soon as Tyreek Hill is out there, like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are going to eat, right? They can't not.
No.
They have to. So what do you do after that? I'm asking you, like, can you trust any of those other wide receivers once Tyreek Hill comes back? Like, who's the guy there?
I mean, I think that you can. I think you can trust. Maybe just in PPR or DFS, you would go with one of the other receivers to play in at a flex. But otherwise, I'm benching them because these guys are just going to be gobbling up targets too quickly for us to really keep up.
That's sort of where I'm at. Sorry, that was Dexter. So that's sort of where I'm at because you look at it like this, where like both Tyreek and Travis Kelce are going to be able to get what it is that they're going to get. And if you're asking me like which of these other three guys, DeMarcus Robinson, Mecole Hardman, or Sammy Watkins are going to get the lion's share of the targets after that, the question is whichever one is open.
Yeah.
Like who knows which one of them it's going to be because Mahomes can spread the ball around like with the best of them. So while you think that Sammy Watkins is the guy that's probably going to be, the true number 2 there, I don't think you can have confidence in saying that he's anything more than a flex play once Tyreek Hill comes back. Because that doesn't include any of the pass catching running backs too, especially if Damian Williams is there, LaShawn McCoy. Like they have so many weapons.
Yeah. So really, do you just feel bad for the defenses that they're up against? How would they even cover this?
Well, I'll tell you how they cover it. I mean, as a Lions fan, you just stop Patrick Mahomes from throwing touchdowns. I mean, I think that's really what it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that even when Mahomes didn't throw a single touchdown, they still won 34-30. Like that team just has so many weapons. There's so many different ways that they can attack you, even if he doesn't get in the end zone. Like it's, I'm not sure what you do to be able to slow them down other than just try and outscore them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just roll through these other two real quick because you brought up your Lions and I want to get to them really quickly, even though they are in a bye. Gostkowski is on IR, so somehow something bad happened for the Patriots.
I know. That's too bad.
They'll figure out a kicker. Something.
Yeah, just like the rest of the NFL.
Just like the rest of they'll just, maybe I'll try out. We'll see if I get on the team.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you never know. Saquon actually was stretching out with some staff, and he's hoping to beat the 4 to 8 week timetable. I mean, do you kind of hope he just takes his time? Because
I'm not
doing just fine, and Daniel Jones is killing it. So I think it's just hype, right?
I think Saquon needs to be smart. He needs to take his time. It is not worth it to try and push yourself to come back that early from an injury. No offense to the Giants, but especially with the season the Giants are going to have, this is not the kind of year that you need to rush back because there's a huge playoff push and you guys are real championship contenders. Saquon just needs to be able to take his time, let Wayne Gallman do his thing, and come back fully healthy because that's what all fantasy managers want. We talked about it on the podcast earlier today on Fantasy Focus. Stefania said that he just is not in a situation where you want him to come back earlier than what he's going to. So I'm not buying that. I think he needs to stay out that whole time. I'm hoping that he does. And Wayne Gallman's just going to, hopefully, even though he's got 2 tough matchups with the Patriots and the Vikings, he's going to be the guy there. So here's hoping he can get you double-digit fantasy points, and that's what you can expect from a guy that, is just coming in to fill in for the number 1 running back in the NFL.
Yeah. We just have a couple of people joining in with us. Nikki J commented and everyone was wondering where Tate was. So he commented a little backstory here. Nikki J has a really fast grandma, and we believe that she is an undrafted wide receiver that could maybe join the NFL at some time.
Would
So
love that.
he's saying that Tate's not in because his grandma broke his ankles on a run route. So
Ooh, that's too bad.
yeah, it's too bad. Too bad. Thanks for joining in, guys. Please go ahead and sound off any week 5 questions you might have in the comments. And then let's just roll right into your Lions. So how do you feel rest of the season? I've got a couple notes here. There are some bright points. There's some things that, that are exciting. I mean, Stafford is averaging over 200 yards a game, which is awesome. And he's averaging over 2 touchdowns a game, which is also awesome. Galladay is on pace. He is right now at wide receiver 11. So he could be potentially top 10 wide receiver for the rest of the season. Is that crazy to say? Or
I think it is. There needs to be a little bit more. So I love Kenny G. Needs to be a little bit more consistency in his game. And as much as I am excited, and I really think that this team has a chance, especially with what they have done. What they've done for the first 4 weeks of the season against some really tough matchups. They've hung with some teams.
Yeah.
And so I think that, there was a lot of questions when Darrell Bevell came in as the offensive coordinator of, so what's Kerryon's role going to look like? How much are they just going to ground and pound? And that really hasn't been it. They've definitely stuck to the run. They have given Kerryon a ton of carries. And after last week, especially, like, he has gotten on track, and I love to be able to see that. But they've been out there slinging it too. And I think that last year, Matthew Stafford almost held back a little bit. He was very conservative, which was great for his turnover numbers, but he wasn't throwing deep. I mean, he's got a cannon of an arm. Yeah. And so I love being able to see him just let loose, and Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay stretching the field. Hopefully we get some good news on TJ Hockenson coming back from that concussion and hoping that he's okay. So we'll see how all that works. But I think that Kenny Galladay can finish the season as a top 15 wide receiver. And if he makes top 10, man, I'll be stoked. I'll be stoked.
You'll just be beaming, gushing.
Exactly.
It'll be glowing all over. And we'll be able to see the glow on the fantasy show, obviously.
Exactly.
On ESPN Plus. If you guys haven't checked it out, you guys totally should. So also, Kerryon Johnson, he is running back 20. Do you see him finishing higher? I mean, kind of going off of that, he has been great for the Lions, and he's been great for fantasy. A couple off weeks, but he's been really, really consistent. So do you see that keeping going, or it's just matchup related entirely?
Yeah, I think that's going to improve. A couple things that I feel like is something they need to work on. Like, obviously they were in a situation where he was struggling, and we played some really tough run defenses the first few weeks of the season. Playing against the Kansas City Chiefs, they are not nearly as tough as any of the other guys that we played in. So he opened up a lot. That offensive line worked with him. I need to see him get more passing game work, though, especially once Theo Riddick left. There was the talk, Mike Clay and I had this conversation of, he could potentially catch 55 to 60 balls in this offense, because even with Theo Riddick on the team last year, we saw Kerryon Johnson was more than capable as a pass catcher. But that has just not come to fruition at all this year. Only 7 catches so far on the season. That's not going to do it for me. Only 9 targets. I mean, they're just not trying to use him in that way that they use Theo Riddick. And so that has got to improve if he's going to, get in that 12 to 15 range. I think you and I had this conversation before the season started during the draft, and I was a little bit higher on Kerryon than you were. So far, you are winning out over me. So I will give you all the credit for that. But I'm hoping that Kerryon can, top 15 running back for this season, especially if the Lions continue to roll and do what they're supposed to do after this brutal start to the season. I think that he can finish up in that 12 to 15 range.
Yeah. Definitely. Oh, we got a quick question from Ryan B. Is James Conner a top 10 in fantasy half-point PPR for the rest of the season? And is Jalen Samuels startable? This is a 2-part Steelers question.
Jalen Samuels is not startable for me yet.
No.
I'm interested to see how that offense is going to play out. He spent a lot of time in that offense, obviously, last week. I have no idea who Mason Rudolph is going to be as the season progresses. There's a lot of problems with that Pittsburgh offense. Juju Smith-Schuster obviously has been a huge recipient of a ton of negative criticism, and just because he hasn't had a quarterback that he can trust right now. So is James Conner a top 10? In half-point PPR, I'm going to say he will probably finish just outside of the top 10 with how that Steelers team has been playing at this point. Without Ben Roethlisberger, I think that they're going to try to key in on them and make Mason Rudolph throw to beat them. So It's going to be tough sledding for Connor. And also they're using Jalen Samuels a lot more than they did last year. You look at what Connor did last year. I mean, he was in the 20 to 30 touch range for multiple games. That hasn't been him at all this year. So unfortunately, I'm going to say no. Not that he doesn't have the talent, not that it's not there, but unless something changes and that offense starts clicking, I don't think he's going to be in that range.
No, I have to agree with you there, unfortunately, about my sad little Steelers. I just think they're going to be passing the ball too much. Distribution is going to be very uneven going forward, and this game definitely showed us that, which takes us into our conversation about who we're worried about. And I am worried about Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm really happy to see that, there were some things that were able to click because the Bengals have no defense. But, I mean, we're not going to be playing them every week. It's going to get tougher. So there's going to be some dink and dunk. There's going to be some, it's just going to be hard to depend on week to week. So unfortunately, Juju's sliding down the rankings. I mean, I think you're still starting him. He's your wide receiver 2, depending on, who you've drafted, but you're not starting him with a giant smile on your face like you were last year.
No. And wide receiver 2 is really disappointing for Juju Smith-Schuster because a lot of people probably drafted him to be their wide receiver 1, that guy that was going to take over once AB left. And so it's been a huge disappointment, not because of Juju Smith-Schuster, and none of this is on him because he's such a great guy. Yeah. He's so incredibly talented, but it's really tough for them, especially with Mason under center. I am hoping, and on the podcast today, I released Juju Smith-Schuster from everything that happened, and he is going to be the guy that, just like Stephon Diggs did last week, he is going to break out, and this is going to be his game. I'm hoping that takes place, but we need to see it because Juju has all the talent in the world. He is a top 7 wide receiver beyond a shadow of a doubt, and it's just being able to get those targets and being able to convert that with a rookie quarterback under center.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there were some flashes, some good, moments we saw from Rudolph. He did have some confidence, I think, in the pocket that I wasn't necessarily expecting to see. He didn't look like a deer in the headlights to me. I think he just was going through the paces. Okay, this didn't work. Got to try this. So they're going to keep working with him. You see Ben on the sideline right there, coaching him up. I think that there is a lot of potential. It's just going to be a slow season for us. Now, Steelers, if we do win this weekend, we're in the running. We're still right there. I mean, it's that divisional option, we still got
How great is that? Like, that's the thing when you have a division like that, no offense to the Bengals, but like, if you guys can turn it around and find a rhythm, even if it's not, obviously you guys threw the ball a ton last year. You led the league in pass attempts, and that's part of why everyone was drafting Juju Smith-Schuster where they were, because they knew he was going to throw it so much.
Volume.
Obviously, that's going to shift. Yeah. And the volume is king in this game, as Leonard Fournette showed last week. So when you look at that, I mean, there is still that division is completely up for grabs for you guys. The Ravens are obviously killing it. You like seeing what Lamar Jackson, well, maybe you don't like seeing what Lamar Jackson's able to do, but he's just so much fun to watch. All right. I know. I'm sorry. I'll turn off that.
No. You know what? It's really funny, actually. I love Lamar Jackson. He went to University of Louisville, and that's where my brother went. And I got to go and see him play at a game there, and it was awesome. Lighting it up. He's an amazing, talented guy. And then in the draft, he went to the Ravens.
I know.
I was like,
it's the worst. Why the Ravens?
I love you. Why are you there? I don't want to root against you. So it was just, so I still love him. You can't hate on a guy that talented, and he's just got the confidence. I mean, the swagger isn't compared to like other quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield, who is, not performing with his swagger. He's just a cool, confident, pretty good for running back.
Not bad for a running back. I love it. I love it. And you know what? Listen, there's obviously been some regression since that huge first week of the season. Mm-hmm. Totally fine. Not a problem, because even when you look at his last 3 games, that is still a major improvement over the passer that he was in his first year in the league. Yep. And so if he can continue to grow, continue to work with those young wide receivers that he has, that it's only going to get better, and he's going to continue to use his legs. He's obviously not going to rush 20 times a game, and the team shouldn't want him to. They want to be able to preserve him
healthy. They want to keep him, the longevity there. They want that. This is their new franchise guy, and it is not going to change anytime soon. So they want to preserve him, and it's amazing to see what they've done with him in his passing game. So it's great to see that improvement. But yeah, I mean, it's just crazy stuff. We got one more question real quick. Matty Voles, good to see you, Matt. Carson Wentz versus the Jets or Winston at New Orleans this week.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to take Carson Wentz here.
Yeah, because the Saints defense hasn't been what it normally is.
It hasn't been. And I understand that. The thing is Jameis Winston is still Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
And that scares me a little bit.
Well, yeah, because he just had a great week. So why would he have a good week 2 weeks in a row?
I mean, that's just how it works. So no, I really like Carson Wentz this week. I think that he is going to have a good week. The Jets are not fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And until I see some consistency out of Jameis Winston, it's one of those things where he's going to put up a huge week and then he's going to have a terrible week. And then he'll have 2 really good weeks in a row. And then he'll have 3 bad weeks in a row. And just that consistency is not there. And it's going to drive you crazy. And as a fantasy manager, for me, even though the Saints haven't been what they were last year, and I don't fear Marshawn Lattimore as much, even though he's an incredible cornerback. I don't fear him as much as I did last year. Carson Wentz against the New York Jets. The Jets are just bad. That offense is not going to be on the field all that much. And knowing that Le'Veon Bell is going to have to basically take on a top 5 rush defense in the Eagles completely by himself should means that offense is on the field a ton for Carson Wentz, which just, again, means more volume, more opportunity, more chances for him to be able to get in the end zone, either with his arm or with his legs.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Carson Wentz, Matt, you gotta roll with him just for consistency's sake. And you don't want to put your heart in Jameis Winston's hands when you know he's just going to crush it. But let's just roll back into some more players we're worried about because we were in that division. Going back to the Browns, Odell Beckham. 4,
not worried.
4, count them 4 fantasy PPR points this week.
That was bad.
If you drafted Odell Beckham, you don't want 4 points out of him because you took him where you want 15, 20, 25, 30, all the way home. You want all the points. This is insane. All the points. What is happening with Baker Mayfield?
I don't know. And I there is something to be said for that team. They have just not found their rhythm yet. They aren't clicking the way that we all thought they would. There was 2 thoughts going in. This team was going to be spectacular in one way or another, either spectacularly awesome or it was going to be a dumpster fire to watch and it was going to be interesting either way. And OBJ is too good for this. Jarvis Landry is too good for this. Nick Chubb looked fantastic last week though, but Baker Mayfield and he has just looked off. Yeah. And for the first couple of games, I just sort of thought it was nerves. I thought it was trying to settle in and get comfortable, but it looks like there's something more there. And I'm not sure what it is. He's an incredible quarterback. I think if you give it some time, season long, he's going to even himself out. But it has been a really rough go of it. But OBJs, you got to keep rolling out there. You can't not put OBJ in your lineup. That's the end of it.
No, but are you trading him away?
Not now. Not now. And even if he has a couple of big weeks, and you're like, all right, so now he's had 2 or 3 big weeks in a row. So this is when his price gets high. I'm still keeping OBJ. The kid's just too talented. He's phenomenal out there. He's a guy that can win you a week in any single week.
Yeah, absolutely. Rolling right along to other guys we're a little worried about. David Montgomery had an okay week. Okay. But only okay.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going on with the offensive coordination there in that they don't seem to be wanting to give the ball to the guy that seems to know what to do with it when he gets it?
I don't know. And I've had this conversation with a number of people because I felt the same way about Tariq Cohen last year when it was like, why are you not utilizing him in the passing game more? He's a guy that you just find way to manufacture touches for because he's just phenomenal. David Montgomery has looked, as good as he possibly can with how he's been running this year. It's so frustrating to watch a guy that we've all been excited about. And he's far and away the guy that Mike Davis doesn't even where did Mike Davis go? After all the preseason hype, after all of where he was being drafted, he's just not being utilized on this team.
He's the water boy.
I mean, right now, it kind of feels that way. I mean, literally 9 carries and 7 targets for Mike Davis on the season. So you love the fact that David Montgomery is getting all the work, 58 carries so far, but only 200 yards through the first 4 games of the season. 12 targets, 8 catches for 61 yards. Like, it's, I get it. He's a rookie. There's always a little bit of a learning curve, but that offense is just struggling. It is just real. It's having a hard time.
It's not good. And his targets are just cut in half from Cohen's at 12 versus Cohen's 24. So yeah, it's just, I mean, you're still rolling him out there. I mean, I feel like depending on where you got him in your league, he's still an okay flex, just depending on the week. I mean, this week at Oakland, though, I kind of.
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
I don't know.
I'm not stoked about it. He's still a flex play for me. Mm-hmm. He's on the field enough. He gets enough work, and in that offense, if he can just get in the end zone, all of a sudden he has made it worthwhile for you, because as a flex play from that standpoint, if you are really, for a lot of people, he might be a low end RB2 just with all the injuries that we've had, trying to figure out if you had Damian Williams, if you had Saquon Barkley. Like there's a couple of things where you're trying to figure that out, but I think you have to keep rolling with him. Mm-hmm. And until things get worse than what they are, he's a guy that you're rolling out there, and you're hoping that those Chicago Bears learn how to run the football, which they want to do.
Yeah, they definitely do. All right. So we went through some of the bummers, some people that were a little bit relieved. I mean, I don't have him on my team because I drafted Chris Godwin, but Mike Evans owners are probably very relieved. Mm-hmm. He's seen an uptick, this week. He had 7 targets. He had a touchdown. He had 89 yards, 4 receptions. He's getting there.
He's getting there.
He's looking like.
I'm not worried about Mike Evans.
No, I mean, I think you were week 1, week 2, even, but
I was worried. I was worried a little bit because of the fact that he just wasn't, even in those first 2 weeks. He only had 5 targets week 1. He only had 8 targets week 2. But against the Giants, coming out with those 15 targets, obviously he scored 3 touchdowns. He was a monster week. But just the idea that it felt like, all right, finally getting back on pace, understanding like this is, getting back to the Mike Evans that we drafted. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. The kid is just too talented. He's so big. And he's actually having Chris Godwin on the other side of him. Eventually, if they can ever settle in, if Jameis can just become the least bit consistent, he's got 2 guys that are fantastic. And OJ Howard in that offense, who knows what's going to happen with him, being there, because he has been absolutely brutal for fantasy managers. But Mike Evans, I'm really excited about where his season is going to continue to go. By the time that you get to the end of the year, I think he's still going to be a top 10 wide receiver. You're going to have some up and down weeks, and that's just because of the guy he has at quarterback. But those big weeks that he has are totally going to carry you.
Definitely. All right, let's roll into games of the week where we feel we're going to find some fantasy goodness. Cleveland at San Francisco.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love it.
I don't know about you, but I'm very excited for George Kittle.
I am very excited for George Kittle. I have actually been surprised that George Kittle has been as mediocre as he has been this year. It's been a little bit, coming back down to earth, and he had a historic season last year. I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah.
But I am excited about George Kittle, and I think that this week he can really get back on track against the Browns. I'm really hoping that he becomes that top 3 guy that he was drafted as. He was probably drafted a little bit higher than he should have been. It was one of the things that we talked about this preseason, where he's a guy that you really like, but there was going to be a regression in his game because what he did was just too good for the average tight end. And so, but still, I really like him. And who else is Jimmy G throwing to in that offense? I mean, you tell me.
I mean, I know that Kittle has 21 of his targets, so I'm pretty sure that he's not really aiming for other people. I don't know.
You look at, so Deebo Samuel has 14 targets. Marquise Goodwin has 8. Dante Pettis has 6. Like, and everybody, like, there's nothing here. Like, he is far and away that top receiving option.
Isn't he?
He is.
Yep. OBJ should hopefully see a good week.
He's got to. I mean, if
he doesn't now, then that's sounding alarms.
Yeah, that would be a huge problem because, no offense to who else they have there in Cleveland, but OBJ is far and away that best target. Even with, it is going to get right. Sooner or later, it is going to get right. David Njoku has been a huge disappointment. He's not been a guy that Baker has looked to as nearly as much as what fantasy managers were hoping he would. And so OBJ, look for him to get back on track this week. And while the 49ers defense has been better, like this is absolutely a matchup that OBJ can take advantage of.
Definitely. One more or a couple more games that are, I think, ripe for fantasy goodness. New England at Washington. Not to pick on the Redskins. I feel like they're just being kicked in the mouth right now. But I guess the question really is, who has the bigger game here? Would it be Sonia Michele or Julian Edelman?
Ooh, Sonia Michele needs to get on track. He's not been what it is that we thought. But Julian Edelman last week, I played Julian Edelman in a DFS stack last week, and it did not go well for me. No. I think can the answer be both? Why can't it be both?
It's probably both. I'm just wondering which edges the other out in fantasy points. They're both going to eat up. I mean, the Washington defense is the bottom 4 in points allowed to opposing offenses, and they're the 5th worst in yards allowed with 1,597. So they're both going to obviously eat up crazy points. I guess it's just, who can get to the high point total first.
Yeah, I would love to be able to see Sonia Michele get back on track, because he's another guy that people drafted to be as a legit RB2, and he has really struggled behind James White and Rex Burkhead this year. And no one thought Rex Burkhead was going to be able to outpace what Sonia Michele is doing, but Michele is literally, he's got 1 target on the year.
Yeah.
1 target. So, I mean, that's just absolutely killing his fantasy value right now, because with him not being able to dominate that running game, it's not working out. So I look at this as a get right game for Sonia Michele against a weak Redskins team. And I think that that's the way the Patriots need to look at it. Hopefully Bill Belichick is watching this and he can just heed my advice.
I'm sure that he is. I mean, I know that he's
probably
he's besties with Field, and I'm sure Field is watching too. So they're probably talking about it right now. We got another question from Ryan B. Is Eckler and AJ Green startable for the rest of the season?
AJ Green, not until he comes back, and then we'll see when that happens, and we have no idea when that's going to be, unfortunately. Once he's back, if he's back and he is legitimately healthy and he doesn't try to return too soon, which it sounds like he is doing, especially with it being the last year of his contract, that he's want to come back and make sure that for the rest of his career that he's not coming back too early, because he's on the wrong side of 30, unfortunately. So once AJ Green comes back, he's a guy that you really like a lot. If you can continue to roster him at the back end of your roster, keep doing it. Please do not drop him. Austin Eckler is a guy that you sort of have to watch and see how this team unfolds with Melvin Gordon back in the mix. Are they going to come out there and just run Melvin Gordon 30 times a game because they don't see him returning to the Chargers next season? Or is it a guy that they're going to continue to try to, they want to continue to keep him fresh and sort of play for the rest of this year and hopefully not have bad blood so they could bring him back and continue to be a part of that franchise? So Eckler is a guy that you could probably play as a flex play for the next couple of weeks until you sort of suss out how that backfield is going to work. You cannot move on from Austin Eckler because his highest value has already passed you at this point of the season. And so whatever you'd be trading him for would be lower than I think what you would be able to get in return, unless you're able to get a fantasy manager that is just either a Chargers fan or in love with Austin Eckler. But I think you got to hang tight, and he is a low-end flex play given matchups on any given week. Yeah,
I agree with you there. I mean, definitely wait and see. He is, of targets that are spread around there. I always want to say San Diego, and I know that everyone messes it up, but it's Los Angeles. And what's funny is the stadium is closest to me, actually, from where I live. It's 15 minutes.
So good.
So, I'm going to be going to the Chargers-Steelers game in October.
Oh, nice.
So I'm excited. I'm going to paint my face black and yellow. It's going to be awesome. But I think that Austin Eckler has good flex value just in that he's right there, number 2 with targets. Mike Williams is questionable. There's just a lot of red on this depth chart right now. And I think that they're going to have to spread the ball to someone. And I think that there might be a bad taste in their mouth with how Gordon has been acting. So either, like you said, they're going to run him into the ground, or they're going to be stingy. And I think that Eckler's still going to see some value.
He definitely will. Especially in that passing game work. And he did it last year. He's a guy that is going to be a low-end flex play, but he's somebody that that they trust. And when they have given him those opportunities, he has absolutely come through and delivered. Yeah. So it is not a question of talent. It's just how much do they want to use Melvin Gordon?
Yeah. And we will learn more this week against Denver. Okay,
Yep.
so this is a real dicey question we just got. Who would you take this week in half-point PPR? Matthew Berry or Field Yates?
That's tough. Half-point PPR. I mean, here's the thing. Matthew Berry is surprisingly more athletic than what you would think he is.
Is he sneaky fast?
No, he's not sneaky fast, but he's like that. You know, he's like Antonio Gates. He'll find that soft spot in the zone and just sit down, and he's like, I'm good. You know, he's a chain mover.
He's cherry picking in the backfield, just waiting, buying his time. Now,
exactly.
So would you roll with Matthew over Field in PPR? Because I feel like Field is just such an eager to please kind of guy. He wants to be there for his friends. He wants to be there for, his team. He's a team player. I think of him more as like a Bugs Bunny character where he's over there, he's over there, he's over there, he's over there, he's over there. He's just ready to get whatever he needs to do.
That's true. That is Field. He's got that youth. He's got that athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, he had the stamina to be able to be out there for 95% of the offensive snaps. I mean, you can't take that away. But there's just something that Matthew Berry brings. There's like this aura around him where it's just, as long as he's out there, man, like plays still keep happening. So if it was full point PPR, I'd go with Matthew Berry. But in half point PPR, I'm going to go with the big play upsize of Field Yates. Sorry, Matthew.
I'm sure you'll understand and probably agree with your analysis. But
Matthew and I played basketball the other day, and I'm telling you, he is more athletic than what you think he is. He is surprisingly good.
Surprising. Was there a few dunks in there?
He's got I'll tell you, he's good in the post. He will back you down. He will use that block. I mean, he's got dumps like a truck. So,
Dumps like a truck.
Truck.
Oh my gosh, these are amazing questions. Thanks, guys, for sending those in. One last game where we think that there's going to be, some good volume there. Arizona at Cincinnati. If the Bengals are going to try and turn anything around, probably in this game.
It's got to be against the Cardinals. It has to be.
Yeah.
So you're hoping that Joe Mixon gets rolling. You're hoping that Tyler Boyd is able to, withstand everything that Andy Dalton does to his fantasy value and break out and become that guy. Because he's the only one there. We'll see what Tate does. But at the same point, in all honesty, there's likely no Christian Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to figure all of this out with Larry Fitzgerald. Obviously, he's a guy that you're starting. And then Andy Isabella is a guy that a lot of people have been really excited about as a rookie. Like we were all hoping with all the rookies that they drafted at wide receiver. I am excited to be able to see what this Arizona offense does. Hopefully, I'm really hoping that David Johnson continues and gets on track on the ground game. But both of these offenses need to find out who they are and figure that identity out fast, because there are problems for both of them.
Mm-hmm. No, it's not looking good. And you just hope that there's some sort of flex value for Boyd, that there's something left for Mixon. And for the Cardinals, I mean, as someone, I didn't draft David Johnson because I was scared. But for anyone that drafted him, I mean, you got to be hopeful for him in this game too. I mean, the Bengals don't seem to have any claws right now. Like there's nothing that's really giving them a fighting chance. So hopefully for David Johnson owners, they see some sort of production out of him as well. Yeah,
I mean, one of the things for David Johnson, this Bengals defense has allowed the second most running back fantasy points this season. Here's the thing. It has been both through the ground and through the air for David Johnson and for, running backs against the Bengals. So as much as you want to see David Johnson get more groundwork, because week 1, 18 carries, week 2, 7 carries, weeks 3 and 4, 11 carries apiece. Like that's not enough. That's not enough. And I know he's getting passing game work, 6 catches in his first game, only 1 in the second game against Baltimore. Wait, let's just throw that Baltimore game out altogether. 6 catches against the Panthers and 8 catches and 99 yards against the Seahawks. He's a guy that is going, especially in a half point or full point PPR, that pass catching ability is going to be what drives home those fantasy points. But these Bengals do not scare you at all. So if you have David Johnson, you've got to be expecting a high output game from him this week. And hopefully it's one of those things that coming in, the Cardinals can just take advantage of that and get a little bit of momentum and project that forward, because David Johnson, even though he's the number 7 running back on the year, has not done nearly what any of us thought he would do.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, thanks guys for writing in all those questions. Just want to jump into one last segment. Didn't write it in our notes, but it is the final debate. And so this is just a final question. You know, it's not always football related. This one, because I know that you kind of like music.
A little bit.
I mean, a little bit. I would say of people that like music, you're on that list.
Yeah.
If there's one album, like a desert island album that you would listen to for the rest of your life, one album that you could just throw on and no song would get on there that you would be bothered by. It doesn't matter what it is, just one album though.
One album is so hard. One album is so hard. All right. Yeah. Thank you for this.
Yeah.
All right. Here's what I'm going to say. That one album would probably be by a band called Pedro the Lion. The album is called Control.
Mm-hmm.
That's who it would be for me. But I have a couple other ones. That's the one. Let me say like 4 others so that I can have a top 5. Is that okay?
You're allowed.
But that is the one. That is the number one.
Fine. Okay, that's the one. It's packed. It's in the suitcase for, you know, when you get stranded on an island. It's there.
It's coming with me. That's what it's gonna be. Okay, so albums 2, 3, 4, and 5 would be it would be Beneath Medicine Tree by Copeland. It would be The Moon Is Down by Further Seems Forever. It would be probably The Week's End by Emery, my dudes in Emery, because I love those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a new band that I absolutely love. I'm literally completely in love with. It has been hard to find new music lately, and it's easy to be able to get in a rut. And so there's a band called Future Teens that has a record that just came out called Breakup Season that is phenomenal. I cannot get enough of it, and I'm telling everybody they know about Future Teens. So if you're into emo or really sad, depressing breakup music, and it makes you feel good, it is so good. They call themselves, I believe they call themselves Sad Pop, and it is so
Sad
fantastic. Pop? Yeah. It is incredible. They are out of Boston. Future Teens, go check them out.
All right, I can get on board with that. I was trying to think of a good final debate question, and I landed on that one. So I know that I have to give you my answer as well, because it's not fair to just ask a question and then
fair.
Throw it out there. And those are all sound like great bands. Some of them that I'd never heard of.
Oh, that's weird. You never heard of those bands?
Crazy.
Incredible.
I only heard of Emery because you always wear their shirts. But
I wear their shirts a bunch. Yep.
But also a friend of mine in college loved them too. But I was thinking about this, and for me, music is always going back and forth. I like a lot of different bands. I'll listen to pretty much anything. But if there's like an album on that I'm like, I'll listen to this all the way through and then hit repeat, you're going to laugh. I know you're going to laugh at me. Enema of the State by Blink-182.
No way. It's such a great album. I mean,
that's a fantastic album.
That's an incredible album.
You can literally
you can put it on. It's super fun. It always like gives you positive vibes. It's just cool to chill to.
Yep.
I will say this. Blink-182 is one of those bands that I have never seen live, and I'm really bummed about it.
Me neither. Oh my gosh. And I've always wanted to go.
Me too. And so like part of it bums me out because now that Tom DeLonge is no longer playing with them, like if I go see him, and not that they won't still be incredible, but like, you know, you want to see the band, you know, with their main lineup and everything like that. And so whatever. It would still be great to see Blink. Hopefully one day, maybe you and I can hook up and connect and go catch a Blink-182 show when I'm out west.
That would be amazing. And
yeah.
Real quick, I know this is terrible for listening to podcasts, but my cat Knox is saying hello.
Hello, Knox. What's up, buddy?
He's like, look at all the cables in here I can pull. No. Well, thank you so much again, Daniel, for joining us. And thanks again, guys, for your questions. And, you know, if you guys haven't, you got to watch the Fantasy Focus show on ESPN Plus with Daniel Dopp, the obvious host, and Matthew Berry once in a while jumps in and comes in with a few lines or two. He's
every
the
once
guy
in a
for
while.
Jokes, right?
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And if you're lucky enough, Daniel will probably have his shirt off on that episode as well.
Yeah, that happens more often than not. I can't believe they let me get away with that, but it feels like I am topless on that show more than I am not topless on that show.
I mean, when you guys go through like the show rehearsals and you're going through the script, it's like, yep, again.
Yep. So why did I even wear a shirt to work today, guys? Like, what's the point of this? You
What is
know,
the point? I mean, just to get through security, I suppose.
that's probably it.
That's probably the only thing. But you also have a DFS show with Mike Clay. Where can people find that?
Absolutely. So if you listen, the Fantasy Focused Football podcast, which I produce, in that same feed, Mike Clay and Al Zeidenfeld and I do a DFS podcast. Comes out every Thursday. So if you play on DraftKings, come and check it out because we have a whole bunch of great stuff that we do that for that. And so you'll find it every Thursday within the Fantasy Focused feed. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome. And Mike Clay knows some stuff about numbers.
He knows so many things. He's the smartest guy I've ever met.
He's a human calculator. It's kind of amazing.
He really is. He is.
It's brilliant. Well, thanks again. And then if people want to find you on social, it's at Something to Break on Instagram.
Yep. Something to Break on Instagram and at Daniel Dopp on Twitter. You can find me either of those two places. And, please shoot me a message, hit me up. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. Send me your favorite bands. And, I love start sit questions. So send some stuff along.
Yeah, guys, Daniel's the best. He's always there for a good joke. He's always there for good advice, and he's always a laugh. So if you want to catch me on any social media, on Twitter, I'm at Samantha R. Holt, and on Instagram, I'm at Sam_awesome. Go ahead and hit subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much again, Daniel, for joining us.
Of course. I'll see you next time.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.